Media is one of those things that is not discussed that often because you just see it all the time constantly. You see it on TV, on phones, on computers. You can hear it through radio and through podcasts. Media is everywhere we turn. However, most people do not know what it takes to produce those kind of things. There is a lot of time and preparation that goes into each show. Like in broadcast, when people hear the word broadcast or newscast, most people would think of the anchors or the reporters. They think of the stories they have seen in the past and what type of things have made that story special. But there are other important jobs that help create the newscast every day. You have the director, technical director, camera operators, producer, expression, teleprompter, and also audio director. But for upcoming college students, most have no idea what they want to do in life. Some, however, just wake up one day and just have that interest in broadcasting. But those students' problem is that most don't know how to get into that professional level. Most people would say that getting the education is important, but Brendan Logue, a production assistant from WDRB, discusses that most of what he has learned was from his job.
The internship was probably the most important thing. While I took some classes in college that were kind of pertain to broadcasting, I really didn't learn anything through those that really helped me get the job. Most of what I've learned is from doing the job. But the internship was probably the most useful thing because you spend time around the station, you get to know everybody, including the managers, and they get a real sense of who you are as a person, and especially here, people are what's most important. The quality of a person, if they think you're a good fit for the culture here.
Brendan's job, a technical director, is to work with a massive switcher. He presses certain buttons that brings up media sources on the director's command.
Well, another word for it is punching. Basically, you sit in front of a giant board full of buttons and lights, lit up buttons, and you're listening to the director who sits right next to you, and you're punching up any source he calls for live on the air. All the different cameras, the live shots, videos, graphics, you're basically pulling all that up live as it's being requested by the director.
In broadcasting, how you get the job depends on the people that you know. Miss Glick was working in Lima, Ohio before she moved here to work at WDRB. She discusses that working hard and making connections are one of the most important things to have when getting into the broadcasting field.
I've been here for a little over 3.5 years. In September, it will be 4 years. And what's interesting, the first station that I worked at in Lima, Ohio, owned by Block Communications, which also owns WDRB. So I did 2 years there, and I was looking to leave because my contract was up. My boss there obviously knows my boss here, and he put in a good word for me. I had to come and interview still. But it just goes to show, if you work hard one place, then, other doors will open. And they always say it's who you know, not what you know, but it's probably a little bit of both.
Miss Glick has 2 jobs at WDRB. She is a reporter and an anchor. As most people would know, the anchor's job is to tell a story to the audience. However, this isn't just sitting in a chair and reading what is on the teleprompter. Glick has to write her stories. These stories could be for the next morning, for the website, or for the newscast that evening. Glick discusses how she prepares for the nightly newscast.
So, for example, if I have more time to prepare for a show, I'll go through my scripts, read them, make any changes that need to be done. Probably just go put my makeup on, come back, maybe write something for the web. If there's a late story that we add, maybe help write that, and then I'll read through the scripts again for the second time. Sometimes you're out there on your computer reading through the scripts during the commercial break, during weather, during sports, during the package. So it's just kind of a game of trying to fit everything into the time before the 10 o'clock news because, you have to be out there at 10. It's not going to wait for you.
And producing a newscast is not all about the visuals and the talent. One of the most important things to have in a newscast is the sound. The sounds of the anchors talking, the police sirens and the packages, and the interviewers discussing what happened that day really make the newscast what it is. Because if you take the visuals away, you still have a newscast, but you just won't see what the anchors are talking about. Without sound, you have no newscast because you cannot hear what the anchors or interviewees are talking about. John Stone is an audio director at WDRB, and he discusses what the audio director's point of view of producing a newscast.
Entertaining. You definitely, when you're watching a newscast at home, you are hearing every sound because you have ears, but you're not noticing every sound. When you're running audio, you are hearing every sound, both obvious and subtle, and it is quite enjoyable to hear them all mingling together and how they can transition from one to another. If you mess up, it is incredibly apparent, and it's no fun when you mess up. But I think whenever a talent or an anchor or a reporter doesn't wait for audio cues, and just because talent can also get used to the rhythm of the show, kind of like when you're driving home and it's the road next to your house, you just kind of go into autopilot and you just assume everything will be the same. If talent doesn't wait for the cues and jumps the gun, you can easily clip their first word, and that can be the difference between seeming like a very quality production and seeming like a lot of other productions that are subpar.
High school students may look at this and seem overwhelmed about everything that goes on during a newscast. Others may look at this and say, oh, this doesn't seem that bad. I could be an anchor for Fox or CNN and I'll do perfectly fine. However, Ms. Glick told me differently about what students should know about being part of this business.
If you want to get into journalism and broadcast, you have to be prepared to work really, really hard. It's not glitz and glam and being on TV. That's actually the very bottom of what broadcast journalism is. So I think if you just work hard, you're dedicated, and you want to tell a good story, you'll be in good shape.
When I asked Mr. Logue the same question, he said that broadcasting is very competitive and getting connections and internship is one of the top priorities when getting into the broadcasting field.
Get an internship if you can at a news station. Talk to people who work in the news, try to make connections, because it is a very sought after field to get into. It's very competitive. People want to work in the business. It's really not easy to get into. So yeah, make those connections, ask around, try to get an internship. And it's not for everyone. It's not for the faint of heart. Doing something live, knowing that tens of thousands of people are watching you make a mistake, can be very stressful. So you got to be able to handle high stress situations, and you got to be able to think on your feet and be able to recover if you do mess up.
So again, for any that are interested in being part of this creative and really fun field, you have to start looking for opportunities and connections. You have to take initiative to make connections, whether at a news station, a future college professor, or possibly a teacher that you have now. And for opportunities, this WDRB Shadow Program is one of the best things you can get as a high school student. You'll meet people like Brendan, John, and Miss Glick, and hear their stories and how they got to WDRB. You can use those stories to guide you on your own path of becoming part of the broadcasting field. For TTV and WDRB, I am Jake Staley, signing off for the last time as a Trinity student.
Today is at 50 million, and tonight's Powerball is 257 million.
Fade to black.
Did you not